Hello guys and gals, me Mutahar, and today we're going to have to talk about Pokemon with guns, also known as Pal World. Now, this game kind of came out of nowhere, and according to my Steam stats, if you're looking here, I'm already 10 hours into this game, okay? So my eyes kind of sting, and I've spent the night playing this with the boys, and I've also ended up playing with myself, so to speak, too. Now, in both scenarios, it was fun, okay? It's always fun playing with yourself, and it's always fun playing with the boys. Even funner together, okay? When you're just on the same session. But ladies and gentlemen, Pal World, I saw this game like a week ago on like Twitter. Somebody shared like a video of it, and I was like, oh, it's just Pokemon with guns. And it was supposed to be some Game Pass thing, and at the end of the day, I decided, why not? My buddy Kyle was like, Muta, the game's great. And I'm like, all right, sure, that's a ringing endorsement. So I'll buy the game, fire it up, and lo and behold, I'm witnessing a Ark Survival Evolved meets Pokemon meets Breath of the Wild. That's the best way to describe it. You know when you ever load up a game and you're like, this is just an amalgamation of like 4 or 5 other games. And usually that's always bad, okay? Almost always. Just because when you're the jack of all trades, you fail to excel at every single trait you're trying to go for. But what if I told you Pokemon with guns actually succeeds at almost everything it's going for? So ladies and gentlemen, to give you a full primer of it, it's a game that takes place in a set world, no procedural generation over here, pretty massive open world, mind you. At times, I guess the best way to compare it is like Elden Ring. You know, right after you're beating the first castle, you start to see the gravity of the world around you, some of these massive peaks, valleys, landscapes. That's kind of what it feels like. The art style is beautiful, right? Like it's colorful, it's vibrant. Yeah, if you look at textures up close, you're probably gonna go, that's a little wild, but in general, it's a vibrant, pretty looking game. Better looking than anything Pokemon has ever produced in its entire lifetime. So we're gonna get started here, okay? So first off, this is Pokemon with guns, and I'm not gonna sit here and mince words. I know these things are supposed to be called pals. They're fucking Pokemons, okay? That's all that it comes down to. So Pokemon, all right, if you know, with Game Freak and Nintendo, has been on basically not just a downward trajectory, we're talking a 90-degree decline on quality. So when you played the most recent Pokemon game, it ran like crap compared to even its like imagine having a game like Xenoblade Chronicles, okay? Tears of the Kingdom. Both brilliant games for the hardware it's on, and then you've got like Pokemon just jumping in, making a crap ton of money, and not doing all that much with it, right? Yes, Pokemon has gone open world, a place where you can throw Pokeballs out and see your little mons walking around, but in general, it's not been impressive. So the way that this game goes is it's much like that. You can bring out your Pokemon in the world, you can run around with them, fight alongside them, and experience the open world. But with this game, it gives you a whole lot more gameplay, and all of it is very addicting. So gameplay loops, right? The idea of like doing one thing over and over and over again can be very, very boring for some people. But if it works well and it keeps you engaged and it interweaves with other loops, you'll waste more hours than you care to even realize. So to give you an idea, this game is Pokemon in the sense that you're capturing like Pokemon and using them in battle, and the whole progression system is you finding Pokemon and basically capturing them, in some cases, over and over and over again. So if you find one Pokemon in the wild, you're inclined to keep capturing them, and that's how you get the most experience. The other way is going into dungeons, finding even bigger Pokemons and raiding them, capturing them for hundreds of experience points. This is by far the progression system. If you don't do this, you're going to be progressing very slowly. There is a leveling system attached, and that leveling system is where it becomes Ark Survival Evolved. So if you ever played Ark, you know that there's a technology tree, and you basically go through each tier and unlock something new each and every time. So the way that the game's progression works is you build a base using the PAL box, which is basically like a Pokemon box, a Pokemon PC, where you can stick tons of your Pokemon into, and fast travel to multiple locations from. So you build this base, and then you start building things like your house. You start building things like furnaces, like berry fields, like hot springs, like a bunch of these little items that all come together to help build resources like wood, like stone. So in that case, it's very much like Ark. And now where it really proceeds there is all the Pokemon you capture, you don't just bring them out into the field with you. You can throw them into the PAL box and they will work your base for you. So let's say you build like a logging camp and you have a Pokemon that has a skill in logging and like getting wood. They will just consistently do that on the base. Same for a Pokemon that's all designed for smithing. You can have a fire Pokemon that literally runs around cooking for you and, smelting iron and like various ores. So there's a lot of synergy and there's a lot of thought also involved in which Pokemon works the best. There's also cases where you look into their, specific traits and realize, oh, some of these guys suck. Some of these guys are actually like hard workers. So you start to micromanage every tiny thing. It's like taking the mother base concept almost from Metal Gear Solid 5 and bringing it to the world of Pokemon, which absolutely works well. So beyond just base building and base evolving, there's an entire world to explore. So the general gameplay loop is you kind of just set a few pats on, you basically set a few things to be built, and then you let your Pokemon sort of do that for you at the base. Then you fuck off and explore the open world by fast traveling to new points, going to new locations, finding more scarier Pokemon, and then the whole cycle keeps interlocking and building up alongside it. Now, in beyond all of it, there's like an entire like story, I would say, and I'm just to say story because it's a survival game at heart. You find me any survival game that has a proper story, and I will eat my own balls on camera because nothing in the story is super tangible. There's like journal entries you pick up. There's some NPCs you talk to. But in general, it's just you building up your base and just sort of autopiloting through whatever story it throws at you. So where it gets into Pokemon territory is it does actually have like some small settlements. I haven't found a city or anything, so to speak. So in that regard, it's very much like Breath of the Wild, where the world is basically mostly empty. There are some small settlements, some small like world building that goes on, but nothing too massive. So generally, when you're exploring the world, you find these towers that have like, I guess, gym leaders in them or like the trainers in this universe. And we fought one, which kicked our ass in like, I want to say a minute. So for now, I've just basically been exploring around. With 10 hours, I've basically reached like level 15, level 16. And of course, I was splitting my game time between an online session with the boys and with myself. So this game is actually fun to play. Again, with your friends, it's great, but you can actually solo this experience. Or if you're somebody that plays games solo, and I know for survival gamers, that shit is usually like a death knell, because usually when you're playing a survival game solo, you progress so slowly that it's just not even fun. But in this game, it actually feels like, because you have the Pokemon assisting you, you do feel like you're not alone most of the cases. So if you are building things or you are doing stuff, because they're at your base, doing all the chores with yourself, you tend to progress quickly, right? And it also brings in sort of a Factorio thing. If you've seen some of the trailers, it seems like the end game for this is going to go off the fucking chain. You're going to be able to get access to full factories and production lines. So in general, you're never really alone. You just sort of optimize, create a system, and then you go do bigger and better things without worrying about all the tiny, stupid things you have to produce constantly day in and day out. That's the general vibe I'm getting. Now, Pokemon with guns is sort of a weird way to put this game too. There are guns, but they come at such a high level. Like, we're looking at maybe around level 25, 26 when you start getting like single shot rifles. So until then, you have like bows and crossbows, and you're pretty much relying on the goodwill of the Pokemon that you have. And I've kind of been underselling this point, but the Pokemon designs are genuinely good. You know, it's not like dealing with vanilla ice cream cones like back in the DS, 3DS days, and God forbid whatever tragedy that occurs nowadays on the Switch. The Pokemon designs are all fun. They're obviously banking on being cute above anything else, which for a Pokemon game is kind of pivotal. Every Pokemon that you get, when you throw them out in the battle, you can see them actually bring their specific moves, which is more effort and work than anything I've seen actual Pokemon games do. So what makes it even fun capturing these things is you throw them out on the field, and you're also out there with a crossbow, with a bow and arrow, with a baseball bat, with a gun, and you're out there fighting alongside your Pokemon. This isn't some JRPG shit. You are literally out there, and you can die in the middle of these battles. So when you fight something that's like big, you can feel the impact of that fight. And again, even the simple act of getting your Pal Ball ready, throwing it at the actual monster, watching it like get sucked in, seeing the percentage go up, seeing that thing shake 3 times in the air, that exhilarating feeling it captures it better than even Game Freak and Pokemon has, which is insane to think about, right? Like, Game Freak has been on such a weird decline with the Pokemon franchise that it finally took, like, indie developers, fucking indie developers, to come in and produce a game that genuinely feels more like Pokemon, in a sense, than actual Pokemon. Now, obviously, this is Pokemon with guns. It's a survival system. So if you're not a fan of survival games, like if you dread the idea of playing Ark or dealing with hunger systems and shit like that, this isn't the game for you, okay? If you really hate Ark, I would not recommend this game for you. But if you're somebody that likes the concept of Pokemon, but you're probably like me, you're like, ah, shit, these new Pokemon games suck. I can't waste my time with them. This is the creature collecting game that I'm spending at least 10 hours, and that's just off one day of its release. Literally before filming this video was me recording footage for this game, and I got carried away. I was only supposed to do it for an hour. I ended up recording like 3 hours of footage, okay, just for the video. That's how addictive the game is. The loops work together, they interlock. It almost feels kind of like Yakuza when you get to like chapter 5 or 6 of that game and you get introduced to the money farms, the various sub-stories, and you lose yourself in dealing with the main story, the progression, the capturing, and everything. Because it's all done so well, the game is absolutely fun to just play. None of these systems feel overbearing, and none of these systems feel annoying, at least so far. Because, again, you're not doing just base building constantly. You know, you do a little bit of base building, then you go explore the world, you do some Pokemon battling, you do some Pokemon capturing, you go to dungeons, you come back home, you do a little bit more base building, and you kind of intersparse all of these gameplay loops in between each other, which again makes it so that it doesn't feel like one of these loops is so overbearing or one of these scenarios, gets tiring after a while. And again, even with the world, it's like the open world, the visual style is again leagues better than anything Pokemon has come up with. So you genuinely want to explore the world. You want to see, what Pokemon that you can find. And I'm sure that legendary Pokemon exist. There are some that are scattered around the world, which is how you get these ancient civilization parts, which unlock like new avenues of gameplay. So you want to do egg incubating, you got to take down a boss Pokemon in the world. And so you find the boss Pokemon, it's got like a big health bar, you throw out whatever you've got, and you fight alongside to weaken it to an amount, pull your Pokemon back so it doesn't kill it, you capture this big boy, and then you can bring it out to battle, or you can stuff it into a base and it can just do something for you. Every single creature has its own job category, so this is where you're going to have to pick which ones you want. And later you can get more bases. So you're literally building bases around the map. So if you want ore, you build bases where there's ore, and then you get Pokemon specifically for mining. So yeah, if you're one of those people like me, where a survival game ticks that part of your brain off, I don't know what it is, this is something that's going to excite you. So yeah, ladies and gentlemen, I wanted to talk about Pal World because, yeah, I can't stop playing it. And honestly, it's a game that came out of nowhere, and it's a surprise game for 2024. So yeah, somehow indie developers, once again, destroy Pokemon Game Freak at their own game, which admittedly isn't that difficult to do, but yeah, congratulations on the guys over here. And if you want to know how big this game is, literally looking at the actual Steam charts, Pal World has beat Dota 2. It's actually almost about to beat Baldur's Gate 3 for its like 24-hour peak. And given the fact that it almost touched Counter-Strike 2, shows you how out of nowhere this game came out of. So it's insane. It's wild to see it. And all of this is, as far as I know, completely early access. So it only goes from here. But ladies and gentlemen, this is me, Mutahar, and yeah. Survival Pokemon game. Actually a banger. I am out.